aspect of it, because the whole product is made here in Kimbolton in Cambridgeshire. Welcome to this week's Swarf and Chips. So how did what was originally a subcontract machining business become a world leader in the sales of work holding solutions?
The design of it actually came about because we originally were subcontract manufacturers, and what we found is that producing one part in a machine vice was just not economic, and therefore I started to look for ways of being able to hold more parts on the machine table. The problem is that if you do that, you need to know precisely where they're all going to be positioned without having to probe or reference each one individually. So this is how the grid plate became. The accuracy of that is really totally reliant on how we produce the parts that come off the system.
So before we see how it's made, let's see how it works.
Right, this is the Microloc work holding system. This is our kit 75. We do 4 ranges, 50, 60, 75 and 100, and that number represents the pitching of the slots. We tend to manufacture the bases to suit the machine they're going on, whether it be a large vertical or a horizontal. And there's basically 3 parts to the system. So you have the base, the reference base, you have the fixed jaw, that has tenons underneath, which locates onto the base in the intersections, and then you have the moving jaw that sits on a rack, and the rack moves up and down depending on the size of your components. You've got a 3mm increment on there, so you move the vise up and down in 3mm increments. You then get about 8mm of travel on the vise. Now, depending on the width of the part would depend where you put the end stop, and depending on how much you want to clamp on would depend on what jaw or parallel you put in. So simply you slide your workpiece up to the fixed jaw and then you tighten like so. If you want to clamp a larger part on your system, you can simply move the fixed jaw to the back and then clamp a larger block like so.
And in today's show, we're going to walk you through the manufacturing of a tombstone that you can see here. This is for a horizontal machining centre. We're going to walk you through step by step how this is made, along with all the elements that go with it. And this is what I love about UK manufacturing. You'll see here the castings are delivered to site. They're then transported into the machine shop, where John Fossey, the manufacturing director, has the responsibility of the whole manufacturing process. He firstly loads one of the tombstones onto a horizontal machining centre, actually onto a Microloc base plate being secured by Microloc clamps. He then probes it into position. He'll then machine the first face before actually turning this through 180 degrees and finish machining the second face to size. The tombstone is then moved across to the grinding section, where the surface grinder will grind both top and bottom faces to size. Once it comes off of the surface grinder, the end faces are then machined with the necessary fixing holes that later in the process will serve to secure the base to the tombstone. And then lastly, we're looking at the machining of the slots. This is done on both sides of the tombstone and machined to extremely tight tolerances. This is where the Microloc base plate, or how the Microloc system achieves its precision repeatability. So next, we're talking about the clamps. The Microloc uses a wedge type vise.
the good thing about a wedge clamp is that it tends to pull the part down when you clamp it in, so minimising the amount of lift you get, especially when you're doing second operations.
The bodies are firstly loaded to a vertical machining centre on a microloc system. They are practicing what they preach here. In fact, they're using the hydraulic version of their system to machine multiple components at once, quickly and effectively. Once machined, if necessary and need to be, the parts are then ground. The finished bodies are then assembled where they're ready to be dispatched to the customer. And then, of course, there is the locator. This is where the precision and the repeatability come from on the system. Now, this is made from EN32B. It's machined, hardened, and then ground.
Like I said, it's not just a clamping system, it's a referencing holding system. So the idea behind it is it's going to save a lot of time